Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Kayla Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM. Back with another first time story.
Yeah.
This is actually the first one so far that our first time did not coincide. You have
True.
Your first time.
And you have yours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are talking about going to Munch's. Now, let's be real. In the current life, if you watch this when it's a new video, nobody's going to Munch's right now. But because I know that people need sometimes literal months to get geared up to go to one, we thought, let's talk about our experience now. And then by the time coronavirus isn't as scary a thing and life is maybe a little bit back to closer to normal and you can go to a Munch, maybe you'll be ready to go to one and we can help you feel more comfortable with that. Maybe. So, yeah, you're going to talk about your first Munch.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about my first Munch, and that's what we're talking about this week. Okay, so you went to your first Munch many years before you even knew me, let alone I knew what a Munch was.
Correct.
So we're going to start with your story.
Okay.
Because I don't think your story is in the sense unique, like, oh, that's never happened to anybody before. But I do think it's also unique because you have talked about it before and you had a pretty meaningful experience.
I did. Yeah, back in the day.
What year? What year was your first Munch?
Oh, gosh, I don't honestly remember the exact year. I will preface it with this. At that time, I did not know FetLife existed.
Did it exist at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did. But the way I found out about it was through Yahoo groups.
Back when people still really used Yahoo groups.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So early 2000s, you'd say?
Yeah, easily. And I found out about it through the Yahoo groups, and I actually knew about it several months before I went. There were two things going on in my head at that time. It was like, one, wow, there's actually a group of people who think and feel about things the way I do. And two, I was scared shitless. Holy crap, there's other people who think and feel the way I do.
I'm not the only one.
So it took me, a little bit to kind of gear myself up to going. I finally decided, because I kept looking at this thing online. I kept looking.
Were they posting it like every month? Hey, the Munch is
here
at this place.
They were posting it every month, and I had actually joined the group.
Okay.
So I was getting, email notifications, coming up at this time at this place and, on this day. So I finally got myself and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And I did. I drove up there, walked in the door of the place it was at, the establishment, and it was off into a back room, separate room.
So it was a restaurant, like...
It was a restaurant bar kind of thing.
Okay. But a place that served food, which most, but not all Munches usually are.
Yeah. I honestly did not know what to expect. I was like, am I going to be walking in there? Are these people going to be in weird fetish gear and people screaming and whatnot? And,
right. Harnesses and collars and leather. Yeah.
Yeah. And I walked into the back room and I was like a deer in the headlights.
That's the first timer look.
Yeah. And no, there was none of what I had in my mind. It was just people casually dressed and sitting around eating food and having a drink.
Probably talking about life and kids and work and kink. Yeah. We totally talked about kink at Munches, but yeah.
The look on my face pretty much gave me away.
It usually does.
Yeah. I mean, these days I can usually...
Oh, yeah, we can spot a newbie from a mile away.
And the couple who facilitated the Munch at that time actually approached me and, it was like, oh, you knew, is this, are you here? First they were like, are you here for the group?
Yeah, that's always the question
Yeah.
that gets asked when you're new, yeah.
Especially since I did not know about FetLife, so I had no way of RSVPing. So, they approached me and asked me if I was there for the group. I told them, yes, I was there for the group. And then came the next question, are you new? Is this your first time? Again, my answer was yes. What was really good and what made that a very positive experience for me was at that point, the person who led the couple, I should say, who led the Munch at that time, took me off to the side. I ordered something to eat, and we sat and talked. And they explained to me about Munches. They asked me, different things about how I identified, dom, sub, switch, whatnot, and just sat and talked and had a very long conversation. They took the time to make me feel welcome. They introduced me to others in the group. Mm-hmm. And it was just really a very positive experience for me. And I ended up making some friends through that. I found out about FetLife. The person running the Munch, what he did, knowing that I was in the group, he then sent me a number of resources that I could look up to learn and start on finding out more things about the lifestyle. And it really was a very positive experience. And the way that did for me at that point, it brought such a feeling to me about the positivity and the community and the need for Munches, and that's something that has carried through with me to this day. That I always tell people, especially newer people, find your community, find your Munch. And I know everybody does not have that same kind of experience, and I wish that weren't the case. But for the most part, I know people do have those good experiences. And I am so grateful that I had that experience.
Because it set you up for a good experience moving through the community in general. Like, it left a good taste in your mouth.
It did.
To come back.
It did. And it was because of that I began exploring other things from the Munch, whether it be socials, and come to find out that the area I lived at that time was very vibrant in the community. And there were numerous Munches, and that's how I discovered workshops and all this other stuff. And it left such an impression on me. The person who ran that Munch, he is no longer with us anymore. But I remember his name. I remember his face, and I remember everything he did for me. And I think that's another thing, because of what he did, it is through that I have kind of like become a Munch ambassador. You
pay it forward.
Yeah.
Because you know what that did for you, so you know what it can do for others.
Yes.
I always think back, and I was thinking it was at your first Munch, but clearly not, or whatever you said it. But there you have a story about a conversation you had at a Munch that helped you embrace your sadistic side. Now, it's not the first Munch, but it's so powerful. I like it when you tell that story.
It actually was not at my first Munch, but it was with that group.
Okay.
Probably about a month or 2 months after the first time. Early on in my journey in lifestyle, I had a very difficult time reconciling my sadistic side. Because, I was raised in an environment where, you don't hit someone, especially women. And, I had that inner conflict. And it was at that Munch that I was sitting talking with a submissive masochist, and she explained to me, she said, I understand those feelings, and those feelings are actually very common, more than you would think. And she told me, she said, I like pain. And she said, when someone is giving me that pain, whether they're spanking me or flogging me or whatever it is, they're giving me love. They're expressing a love to me because they are fulfilling a need of something that fulfills me. And she said the thing you have to understand, the way she explained it, was there is a huge difference between someone getting hit in the lifestyle, because once it gets to be too much, when it's asked to stop, it stops. And whereas abuse does not. Mm-hmm. So it was through the conversation with her that I was able to come and bring those two sides together and move forward in that aspect of myself as well.
And if you had never gone to the first Munch, who knows how long it would have taken you to reconcile that part of yourself, because you wouldn't have been in the position to have that conversation.
To meet that person, to have that conversation, right.
And that's the thing about Munches or anything in a local community.
Mm-hmm.
We do not say you should only do your local community. We absolutely embrace the online community, but the power of community is that you have conversations you would not have otherwise. You hear experiences and perspectives you would not hear otherwise, and it opens your mind to what's possible.
Exactly.
I had a different experience.
Yes, you did.
But that's because I'm the submissive to my own Munch ambassador. Thank you very much. So I had what I would describe as probably the ideal first Munch. It is what a lot of people do not get, but if you can ever do this for somebody else, I highly recommend it. My very first Munch, we had just moved in together.
Yes.
I don't think it was the first month. I think he gave me a couple of weeks. But we had basically just moved in together, 2014. Mm-hmm. It was the Munch you had been going to for a literal years.
Yes.
You knew almost everybody in the room. You had been going prior to us moving in together and telling people how Kayla's coming. Kayla's going to be moving in. We're moving in together. So when I walk in, I have social anxiety. And so new people and new spaces and it's very stressful. I walk in and it was like a family reunion with family I didn't know. You ever been to one of those family reunions? You got cousins and aunts and uncles. They saw you last when you were like 2 weeks old and they tell you how big you've grown. Like, it was one of those kind of situations where everybody was really, really welcoming. And I was like, who are you people? Hi. So I had a very good first experience because so many people were happy to see you and you had been talking about how we were long distance and now we were together, and because it was a welcoming community in general, they immediately embraced me. Metaphorically, 2 people upon meeting me, one is still a good friend of ours, the other, that didn't work out so well. That was my first time experiencing the act of getting consent for what I would almost consider everyday kind of experiences. I am happy to hug people that I really care about and I'm really comfortable and close with, but I've also worked in jobs where it was almost expected you were going to hug near strangers, and I hated it. And not a single person at that Munch first of all, not one of them approached me without talking to you. It was a very old school protocol thing of ask the dom for permission before talking to the sub, even though that's not required in a Munch. That was just like out of respect, and that's just how they handled it. Also, I probably had my own deer in the headlights kind of look going on. I think that is very common for all new people at a new Munch. It's fine. Don't feel bad. I thankfully could cling to your arm and did, and half hide. Have you ever done that thing where like part of your shoulder and torso is behind the shoulder?
Couldn't slip the hair between us.
No, if I could have crawled inside of him, I would have. Just carry me around like I'm a baby kangaroo. It's fine. But everybody who wanted to come close and maybe hug or say hi or shake hands, they all asked him first. Yeah. And then they asked me, can I hug you? Can I, that was my first experience with getting consent before a near or total stranger like approached me too closely. That was really, really nice. I did not want to talk much because, again, social anxiety. Thankfully, it helped that you knew so many people. I didn't have to. I could just sit there and smile a lot. And probably for the first year, truly, genuinely, the first year of going to that Munch, that's exactly what I did. I just smiled a lot, and I ate my food, and I had opinions, but we talked about those in the car. But that was a very interesting experience because I knew that you had been in the local lifestyle for a while. I understood that it had been like a decade or more at that point that you had been going to these things and knew people. What I did not understand is what it means for the community to respect somebody. Because you are just one of the genuinely kindest people on the planet. I feel like an awful human being because I forget small courtesies, and you always remember small courtesies. And because you had been so friendly and you had sort of done for others what was done for you, people were coming up to me just to say, they called you by your it still is current FetLife name, Southern Sir. Southern Sir I'm the one that named you John Brownstone, essentially.
Yes.
If you want to know how that worked. Southern Sir is such a good person. Oh, he's so happy. We're so happy that he's happy. Oh, he said so many nice things about you. And it was this overwhelming, but in a good way, kind of experience. I am very, very fortunate. It is why we have done it for somebody else before. If you can help somebody get to their first Munch, it's a group you're comfortable with. You have friends. You tend to know most of the people there, that kind of stuff. And you can bring a new person with you and help ease them into it in this warm, friendly way. I think it makes all the difference in how you view the community. If your first Munch is people ignoring you and barely looking at you and nobody coming up and introducing themselves, heck no, you don't have a good feeling about the community. Your first experience was very positive. My first experience is very positive, and I am as pro kink community as I know how to be because of that, because I know the power of that. It is overwhelming to have a whole room of people look at you. Not gonna lie. There were a lot of expectations on that, though, because of your history with the community and because you had talked about me. The thing I liked, and like I said, I smiled and nodded for the first year of going to that Munch. So I did a lot of observing. And what I noticed is people come and go with Munches. So you go to a Munch for a while, and then life happens, and maybe you can't for several months. That happened to us. We went like a year where we didn't get to go to a single Munch.
Right.
When somebody shows back up, even if only 2 or 3 people in a room of 20 or 30 know them, it's like, it's another kind of family reunion moment, because I remember that first Munch, I don't know who the person was, still don't know who the person was, but it was somebody you had not seen in a Munch in like 6 months, a year, and it was hey, how are you doing? Handshakes, bro hugs, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, and there's a lot of like side conversations. I think that's why it can be very nerve-wracking for a new person to come into that environment, because if it's a fairly tight-knit community where a lot of people know each other, you do see a lot of those little one-off conversations. I freaking loved it because it meant nobody was talking to me. Thank you very much. Okay. But not everybody likes that feeling. I totally get it. But there is a lot of that. There's excitement to see somebody that maybe you had a really great conversation with 6 months ago and you haven't seen them since, or you did connect on FetLife and you haven't seen them at a Munch. And it does sort of ease your way into it. For my first one, because I was so nervous, I almost didn't eat. Had I gone by myself, I wouldn't have eaten. I cannot eat when I'm that nervous. You were with me, so I was like, yes, we're digging into a hamburger. Thank you very much. Because then I could busy myself with eating, and nobody's really talking to you when your mouth is full of food. If you go to a Munch and whether you're in a relationship and you go as a couple or you go by yourself, I recommend, if you can do it, eat, because one, that's a very social activity, and people will at least talk about, well, I ordered this. Oh, that's really good. What do you think about that? Blah. And also, while you're chewing, nobody's expecting you to talk. That's always a great thing. But yeah, it was a very really warm greeting of, oh my gosh, we're so excited to meet you. And I'm cynical sometimes a little bit. I got a little cynicism in me. So I was like, oh, they're just being nice to me because of John Brownstone, who I did not think of as John Brownstone at the time. That was not his name yet. But that's why they're being nice to me. And then I went often enough and I observed how they treated new people. They were gentler with other new people because they already had a connection that I didn't know existed. Yeah. But that particular group, they were just welcoming. If you were new, almost identical to the way you described your first munch.
Yes.
They approach slowly. They're, hi, how are you? Is this your first time? Are you here for the group? Is this your first time?
Yeah.
And it's funny because for a long time, it was usually just the facilitator of the munch that did all of that. And then as our time in that community grew with me being there, you had already been part of that community. I watched other people kind of be like munch ambassadors.
Yes.
We have a good friend who took it upon himself every single munch. There was a new person, new to kink, not just new to the munch person. He could be seen an hour after the munch had ended, as long as the person was willing, sitting there in the space talking about, this is what it means to be a dom. This is what it means to be a sub. This is, you know, like he would do a real quick BDSM 101
right.
to help a brand new person. And though that was part of the culture of that community, and I felt that the moment I walked in. It makes me very picky now about the communities I join. If I don't get a warm, fuzzy feeling, I don't want to be here. Thank you very much. But I had the good fortune to have somebody with me that I could hide behind. And I was still like heart in my throat, wanted to be sick everywhere, nervous. It is natural. It is normal. You are not the only one. That same friend of ours talked about his first munch experience. He said he went to the restaurant. He sat at a table that was not with the group, ordered food, watched to see who came in.
Yeah.
Because he had the same thing of, oh my gosh, they're all going to be wearing leather. They're all going to be in fetish gear.
Yeah.
Who are these freaks like me? And then he saw that they were just regular people going to have, you know, I think it was an IHOP or something. They're going to have an omelet.
Yeah.
And then he joined the group.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever coping skill you have that's not harmful to you or others, I say use it.
And just to show, you know, how sometimes things come full circle, that first munch group that I attended, before we moved, we actually ran the munch for a while.
6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was easy to do at that point because now I had been a part of it for long enough. I had a huge comfort level. Like I could walk into that munch. It could have 5 people. It could have 25 people. And I felt my place in it. I could sit wherever. I could talk to. I'm still not good at talking to people I don't know, but I know the importance of at least not being totally cold and but yeah, and that's the thing. I think some of us walk into that first munch with these high expectations of what others are going to expect from us. They're not going to expect anything from you. If it's a decent community where they're trying to welcome new people in, even if they do it imperfectly, they're at least trying. Yeah. They will happily let you sit and just be quiet. You know, because we've all been new and we all get it.
Right.
Or they'll do a one-on-one conversation if, you know, the sense is that you'd be more comfortable with that. We've seen a lot of people come as couples. My first time was as part of a couple. Single people come to their first munch all the time. I do think that the vibe matters. I think if you had taken me to that first munch and the vibe had not been this really warm embrace of good energy, you would have had to spend a lot of time convincing me to go back, because after those first couple times at that particular munch, I started doing things with another part of the community, did not get that warm vibe
that's true.
all, and went, no, I can't do this anymore, because it was, part of it was my social anxiety, which is a thing that has to be dealt with in those situations, but part of it was I didn't get that warm fuzzy. I was actively ignored. I went to the first one and had a great experience because the right person found me and kind of latched on me and went here, saw that I was new, saw that I was scared. Yeah. It was great. I went a few more times after that and that person wasn't there, and I was actively ignored every time. Like I wasn't there, like I didn't matter. Yeah. And that was an awful feeling. And the thing is I didn't go back, and I wouldn't go back. And if you go into one of your first munch or your first whatever, and you get that feeling, no, please do not force yourself to go back. It's not worth it. You know, that's why we do say, if you don't have a good online community, a good local community, look towards your online community. Yeah. Or
start your own.
Yeah, community. Maybe not after your first munch, but if you get a little experience under your belt and you're like, there are things about this I like, but there are things I really do not. No, there's no accreditation for starting a munch. Like, there's no magic wand anybody waves and goes, you're allowed to start one now. If you know how to post something to, like, FetLife, and you know how to, like, talk to somebody at a restaurant or a bar or whatever and get a little corner space that they'll let you have for 5 to 10 people, you know how to set up a munch. have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know people who did not like the vibe of their community.
Yeah.
And they went, I'm going to start my own. And they did. And it's just a handful of people. And that's where it starts. It always starts with just a few people. Because if there's something you don't like about that munch when you go, there are other people who don't like it either. It could be why it's maybe dwindling in size,
right,
not growing. But my first time, I was very, very fortunate that I had you, that I could hide behind you. I know me. I would never have gone to my first munch by myself. I would have gone with somebody.
Yeah.
Because I need to know because the times I did go by myself, I was paralyzed. That first time you sent me off to that coffee time, cried the whole way there driving. It was a 2-mile drive, cried the whole way. Sat in the car before I got out to go in, cried. Then, of course, had to dry my face, make it look like I hadn't been crying. Had a good time at that first one. Went back the next week, got ignored. Went back the third week, got ignored, cried both times.
Yeah.
Said, I can't do this anymore. Please don't make me do this anymore. So you don't need to go to a place that makes you feel bad like that. Do not force yourself to join a community where you feel that way, I guess is the thing.
True.
If you can't find the place that gives you the warm, fuzzy, good vibes, makes you feel welcome, if you have the capacity to start something yourself, then go for it. You do not need special permission. And if you need special permission, consider this it. We've just granted you permission. That's what I'm saying. Because quite frankly, we need more communities where people want to make other people feel welcome.
Yes.
Because we learn and grow as a community. It's very easy to get isolated in your kink life, your BDSM life, to only read books or to only watch porn or to only follow certain people on Twitter and to never actually interact. And if you can find ways to interact that work with who you are as a person, because we all have our own limitations with that. If you can find that, though, or make that space for others, then you help yourself learn and grow and become a better kinkster, and you help other people at the same time. Yeah. That's our first munches. Each similar but different stories. I'm so glad you went before me. I'm glad you were my munch ambassador.
Paving the way.
I highly recommend, if you can be a munch ambassador, if you've been and you're comfortable with your community, you can do that for a friend or somebody, that's new. You see them walk into the munch and they're new, and go be like, help them and say hi and all that. Highly recommend it. You're doing a huge service to other kinksters.
Absolutely.
Because we've all been new and we've all been scared, y'all. I mean, I've seen some big burly people who act like they're scared of nothing, go, oh no, I almost did not walk into this munch. So yeah, you're not alone.
No.
So that's our first time.
That's our story.
Going to a munch. Okay, so I'm not sure what there was to learn by it. That's fine if you were entertained, interested. Maybe you did learn something new. Maybe you like having permission to go make your own lunch. This is me waving my fairy wand at you. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you want more of this.
And hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload new content.
Sure, whatever Daddy says.
That's right. Because I said so, little one.
If you really, really like what we do, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Kayla Lords. Bye.